I know somebody doesn't like to always read, so let me go through this real quick. Um, the document has everything in it. So what I'm doing here is I was given a 2018 Dell G7 um, laptop for gaming, and DCS, when I looked it up, gave me the minimum requirements and the requirements if I wanted to run in higher graphics setting. So from that, I updated RAM to 32 gigabytes. I just recently, last weekend, um, replaced the hard disk drive, which I had a C drive that was a 5400 uh, physical drive, and I swapped it out for 1 terabyte uh, SSD. And the other drive on it was already a PCI 3 drive. So that pretty much has eliminated any hardware bottlenecks at this point, realizing it's an older machine. And so let's go through it. What I do here is just give you an idea. There's a link there. You can actually see the stat box that comes with DCS. And my main goal was just to have it not have a spike, and you'll see that coming up. But I do want to warn you, do it at your own risk. Make restore points, back up stuff. Don't yell at me if something goes squirrely, because it can. And I've warned you a million times. Also, kind of give you hints of what I did, and I leave you some links. And again, there's lots of people out there to teach you stuff. The people I link to, I just happen to find were helpful, and it still takes a little playing around and understanding. I do have over 40 years of IT experience, and I started, with like Commodore 64s, Apple IIs way back when. And I'm used to coding, and I can code in object-oriented languages. The other thing I do also is on this box is, since I'm only playing the game, I also turn off um, Windows Defender, what they call the automatic checking, and you have to do that each time when you bring up your Windows. It'll start back up. And I probably could turn it off fully, but maybe not be a good idea. Here, as I'm showing you the stats that show you when that piece of code is running, you just get constant hard page faults, and they are just hits to disk, which just take time and slow down any gaming. All right, table contents, and I pretty much give you a goal here. I'll probably upgrade to a faster machine, but why not get it? So here we're looking at your system requirements. This comes directly from Digital Combat Simulator, and this is low end. So on the high end here, what I don't have is I have a GTX 1060 Max Q, but only 6 gigabytes of RAM on board. It looks like it's looking for a 1070 with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So there is extra RAM on board, and I do have 32 gigabytes. So that's all I can really do. Here's a general picture and simplified. But really, what you're doing with all these different types of tuning is it's all going to be based on whatever your BIOS is, your box, what you're running. And this kind of goes over anything and everything. And again, it's going to be, you need to do the work. But once you get it, you pretty much are stable for a long time. So there's different pipes as a hands-off CPU to GPU. There's different highway or data paths in and out of memory and faster memory and all that. So let's go through. So I talk about my hardware specs here. You can read about them, but generally it meets everything that was up there. What I do is I talk about the GPU, give you a link here, you can compare. So if I went up to a GTX 4090, which is your max now, that would be about 700 to 800% better than what I'm running currently. I talk about my inputs. I'm using a pretty inexpensive HOTAS, and there's also a bug in it with there's a DLL you need to change out, and Other than that, let's see, goals, and no BGB, no spike. So what I got here is just talking about my goals, and you can see here clearly this is a spike that I was getting in the stats, and this is showing you none, but I wasn't really doing anything, and I'm asking here what certain parameters and what they mean, and that was one of the goals of this document, and to show the second half of your stats and the BIOS and things like that that I did change. And like again, you're going to get down to things like if you're a laptop, you got to turn off power management. That way you're boost up, things like that. When you get into your software tuning, here's where the fun begins. And here I'm looking at the CPU stats. And in general, what I found was after the MT tuning in a couple months and my tuning, it definitely changed how the different threads are running and how I tune the GPU with your MSI Afterburner. And you can only get up so much. Again, heat's going to thermal limit you, and then you don't really gain much. But I gained a little bit. The GPU here is not being ever taxed. I was amazed. It's running 100%, but still got plenty of memory. So it's doing its thing, and I didn't have any spikes. I am using the NVI DIA driver, and here is a way to go out and debloat that. Install Windows 11 itself. You need to go in and debloat that. The next thing is you really want to look at your interrupts for your latency. This guy here did a very long video, but he's very good at it. And what I'm showing you here is what drivers are taking up interrupt counts and DPC counts and how long are they executing. I know milliseconds seem short, but it's not. So the big thing you're going to see here is you can't do much about the kernel. I've yet to figure out what I can do to this driver here. The ACPI is basically power management and all these other things, and you can kind of tune that and get that reasonable. And this is just showing you how I had to go into power management. You also want to turn off any devices you're not using, like Bluetooth, so on and so forth. On your gain tuning performance here, I'm looking at your DCP. So if I'm something that's sitting there, I got to interrupt the CPU or GPU, say, hey, I got to do something. Please run this extra code. That extra code's going to run, and you can get a count of who's pulling them up. And here you can see again, this is more NVIA or kernel. There's not much we can do there. So we pretty much have this pretty clean after tuning, which is what I'm looking for. Under the drivers, I'm looking for the highest execution count here, and you'll see it's the ACPI again. So again, good thing to tune. On your CPUs, again, usually number 0 is going to have the most hits, overall performance hits, because it's usually doing most of the scheduling. So you hear again ACPI. So the more you tune whatever that driver affects, the better off you are. The rest are kernels, can't do much there. So then when I go back to my page faults again and running DCS, you'll see it's just DCS. But that's fine because it's a game. You're going to have some page faults, but there's nothing else actually adding to the contention of that timing. Again, a little bit about the memory. I've been only dealing with DCS or enjoying it for 9 months, so still learning. The MT multi-thread I've been dealing with now since it came out. I would say it's pretty stable. I don't use any mods. If I do, it's run on a whole separate setup. So I do run a fully clean install. And that's really all I got for this one.